Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Sword Art Online Alicization review. This one is going to be for episode 8, which is called Swordsman's Pride. And we pick up here immediately with the cliffhanger from last week's episode of the, one-hit duel between Volo and Kirito. And I thought it was really good. I thought the action throughout, which was a big feature of this episode, was great throughout. Even though I suppose if when you really break it down, the fight was basically just one clash. It was just basically one sword skill against the other, which I get was the point. It was kind of a one-hit kind of duel, but it wasn't like a prolonged fight in any sense. They focused in on it to, I suppose, explain a little bit better what they meant by the whole imagining yourself as the victor and it actually having an actual impact on the battle. And they showed that with, I suppose, the kind of the pressure, the intensity of the family that Volo is from, and that being a huge reason why his attack, the avalanche, is so powerful. And I think also, from Liana, you get the whole idea that it's actually this kind of north, place in the world kind of style. So Kirito actually recognizes some aspects of the sword styles, what they've called them, as being certain moves from Aincrad. So that was pretty interesting, and it was basically just this clash of this two-handed avalanche kind of downward move versus kind of Kirito's vertical square. And when they get to, I think it's the third hit, that's when you have the big clash. You get the Volo kind of his whole kind of family kind of behind him, and then you have Kirito kind of power up by realizing who he's kind of fighting for, not just the people in the underworld but the people outside of it as well. His sword powers up, it actually gets bigger, and the visualization that I suppose Volo sees in the clash is the Gigas Cedar kind of towering over him. So that was a pretty cool thing to see that actually sort of makes sense for the sword, given that it is made of wood, that it would sort of grow and match the huge size of the object it was made out of. It didn't get that much bigger, but gives you maybe a hint that that's a power his sword will have at some points. But still cool. He gets out of that clash and goes in for the fourth hit of the move, gets a cut on the guy's clothes. And then just as they look like they were about to kill each other with the next blows, the match is interrupted. It's just declared a draw, and Volo sort of leaves. But because of Volo's position as the first seat, Kirito gets most of the plaudits from the battle because he wasn't expected to do anything in this match. Yet he comes out as closer to being the victor than Volo was. And what I really liked throughout this episode as well was that you continued the nice relationship that Kirito and Liana have, of just her obviously having seen something of note in him, and this match really showing her something different. She learns from him just as much as she's teaching him. That she really learns this sort of kind of that special skill that kind of Kirito has, of just to be able to turn his power on 100% and kind of accomplish something he otherwise wouldn't have been able to do. And with the story they've been telling with Liana of she's constantly the second seat, she has never been able to defeat Volo, or I suppose come close to it, yet here she's seen the person she's training come closer than she ever has, and it kind of teaches her something here that she uses later on. I suppose that you get the inspiration from Kirito that what she's learned from this allows her to get the victory in the final opportunity to claim the first seat, which she does. She wins the fight, she gets a clean victory over Volo, and I suppose graduates as the first seat. So, for a minor enough character so far, I thought they told a pretty nice story there. They got into a little bit more depth when they were kind of talking in the kind of celebration afterwards with Yu-Gi-Oh! And so on, that something happened with the family that she's from. It is still a noble family, but because of an incident in the past, the Sir Luce style that she has is this unusual style that doesn't really have any specific sword skills associated with it, which in a way is actually kind of sort of explains the reason why Kirito has never been able to beat her, because his style focuses so much on sword skills, and he's like an expert at that because it's the mechanic, whereas what he's learned from her so much is just the basic sword techniques that kind of her style will be based around, and that's what makes her so skilled. Is that I think they basically say that she has some basic sword skills, but her style is more the combination of everything rather than specific movements. And I thought it was an interesting one of her kind of feeling that almost a little bit ashamed of her technique and realizing from Kirito, who also has a unique technique, that he doesn't see it as any sort of a negative, that it's not one of the standard popular styles, that he uses it as his own and it allows him to have this kind of unlimited potential. And she has that option as well because she also has a unique style, and so her, I suppose, taking pride in her unique style is what allows her to get the victory. So the first half of the episode I thought was pretty good to just get across this really nice relationship, and then you sort of transition into like, okay, the two guys, Rios and Humbert, I don't think we've got their names, or they only really basically like minor kind of went into their names. They come over and are, you sort of know what they've done already because they come out of the place where Kirito's garden is, and they seem to show Kirito a little bit of respect, though it's just a kind of act they're putting on, and they leave something with Kirito. It's one of the heads of one of the flowers, goes back in, and the flowers that he made have been ruined. And then I was wondering how much they'd go into the whole flower thing based on the light novel, but they actually went into it fully here, explaining the sort of backstory for this, that Kirito was growing flowers that in the game are never meant to grow in this section of the world, but because they're Leanna's favorite flowers from where she's from, Kirito tried to grow them here and use it as an experiment, a test for just how much the power of willpower, imagining something, how much of a role like just inserting your, I suppose, soul into things and using that to power it can have in the world. And they basically reveal that he broke the rules, the basic laws of the game by just focusing on these flowers. He allowed them to grow where they weren't meant to by just willing it so. And so they're ruined, and then he hears this voice in his head, which I think we've heard a little bit before, and the voice basically explains to him that, look, the other flowers aren't happy with this either. Use the fact that like there's a connection here with the kind of images that you send, visualizing something perfectly to make it happen, and that will allow the flowers to come back. And so we get this pretty nice moment where he just kind of channels a little bit of the life force from all of the other plants, the other flowers there, and it sort of gives life force back to the destroyed flowers and gets them back. And that's kind of, in a way, like the key thing we learned in this episode was the details of that sort of imagining something within your soul, empowering you within the game, and how here's a battle application of it, here's a more world mechanic version of it, and just how important it is. So that's an important thing for, I suppose, us as the audience to learn, and just in the sense of this episode making that clear that Kirito did it against Volo. The idea would be that Leanna also imagined herself as being able to win after gaining confidence from what Kirito did, and accomplished that. And then again with the flowers. So they set up those two as rivals in that they sort of time skip a little bit, and they're like, okay, Kirito and Yu-Gi-Oh are now 5th and 6th seats. You sort of get the impression that they're maybe not as high up because they're not nobles, so that they couldn't have been made 1 and 2, even though potentially they realistically are. But that there's still something coming with these two. They've been teasing this for a couple of episodes now, but there hasn't properly been a confrontation between Kirito and Yu-Gi-Oh and these two nobles. And the name of the next episode makes it clear that it seems like that's going to come to a head now. And then pretty much they end the episode with the introduction of Kirito and Yu-Gi-Oh's pages. Now that they're elite disciples, they're like in the highest year of the Sword Academy, they have their own pages who they have to kind of help and train. And so it's these two girls. Yu-Gi-Oh has TS, Not sure about the pronunciation. And then Kirito has Ronnie, or Onie, and they're obviously very kind of like cute girls. But what I like is that because of the characters that Kirito and Yu-Gi-Oh are, you can tell that they honestly respect them, and because we know Kirito and Yu-Gi-Oh, we know they're not going to be the type of characters to sort of overly boss them around. So they sort of just let the girls, like, okay, to do their roles, they know they have to do a certain amount of stuff. We'll just accept them doing that, but they're super relaxed about it. And Kirito especially is like, oh yeah, you just do that, and then just like brings them the kind of the stuff from the bakery shop and just immediately hands it out to them, and is even giving them like, oh yeah, just bring the rest of these back to your dorm room and share them with the rest of the disciples. That Kirito is like the best, like, elite kind of tutor. And because of the type of character that he is, I think you got a slight sense, even though we only just met her, that like Ronnie actually appreciates that Kirito is this very different character, and hopefully they develop that relationship but of both kind of in the next episode. But I thought it was, nice introduction of two pretty important characters here, in terms of like just a kind of responsibility like thing of like Kirito and Yu-Gi-Oh now have the sort of Liena position here of having to mentor these two girls, as well as keeping their eyes on the fact that they're just doing this to get to the point where they can get to the central capital and get Alice back eventually. So that's still somewhere a little bit off in the distance, but they're making huge progress towards that. So that's the main thing at the end. So yeah, next episode looks to be more focused on the nobles. They've sort of been teasing this idea of like, oh, the nobles have this kind of weird mentality to them, and it kind of makes them different than the commoners. And it's not just your standard thing of them being kind of stuck up because they're nobles. So we'll get into that in the next episode. But yeah, this episode I thought was really good. Wasn't perfect, and I still feel there's a few little things that like they're not quite adapting the light novels in maybe the perfect way, in terms of they could be doing a better job at like hinting at some setup for stuff of like little moments that could help a reveal down the line. Whereas I think the way the adaptation has sort of been doing it is that they'll sort of very much not give you any hints about something, and then when it comes to like, oh yeah, we have to reveal it now, they choose that as the moment to sort of reveal all of the little moments. So you're not really being given a chance to figure it all out. It's just, here's the next thing, here's the fact that it was set up earlier on. Whereas in the light novel, you maybe had some set of moments before then. So the best example so far would be the Kirito sword, in that he just got it, and it was in the very same episode we realized he got the materials that could actually make it. Whereas in the light novel, we actually saw him get the item that was the tip of the Gigas cedar, and they planted the seed that, oh, he might turn it into a sword. We saw him sort of hand it in, we saw him claim it, rather than all of that happening at the same time. So it's not, I think, perfect, but I don't think there's anything hugely like problematic about the way they're doing it. It's just a kind of stylistic choice of like them perhaps not wanting to leave too many smaller plot threads out there with like just little scenes to vaguely set them up before they're ready to. So yeah, that's been my review for the episode. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on this one. But yeah, it's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.